Egypt announces that the global food crisis is intensified now by climate change and geopolitical conflicts. Egypt's foreign minister meets with U.S. senators, where they highlight the rapidly worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And the Egyptian Prime Minister strongly condemns Israel's expanded military operations in Gaza. Egypt's G20 representative ambassador Raghai El-Atrebi has emphasized that the global food crisis is now an unprecedented challenge, intensified by climate change and geopolitical conflicts. Speaking at the G20 agricultural ministers meeting, he stressed that tackling food security requires boosting production, ensuring climate justice, reducing waste, and improving supply chains. He called for genuine reforms to the global trade system to guarantee food access for all, condemning the use of starvation as a political weapon, especially in Gaza. El-Atrebi highlighted Egypt's pride in private sectors, partnerships, and its comprehensive development path focused on self-sufficiency and agriculture expansion, urging for concrete action beyond slogans. Egypt's Finance Minister Ahmed Kojok has emphasized the G20 as a vital platform for economic cooperation and political progress, actively involving civil society. He highlighted Egypt's commitment to supporting nearly 60 million citizens to prevent food security crises, underpinned by strong backing for farmers and an innovative school nutrition program addressing food challenges. He also revealed plans to expand agricultural land by 3 million fadans, strengthening food production. Additionally, he added that the Takaful and Karama social support program has added 5 million families. He also said that Egypt dedicates 20% of its state budget to food security, demonstrating effective policies that enable the nation to confront and mitigate food insecurity issues. Egypt has expressed profound condolences and sympathy to the Afghan people following the devastating earthquake that struck eastern Afghanistan, causing hundreds of deaths and thousands of injuries. In a statement by the Foreign Ministry, the Egyptian government affirms its full solidarity with Afghanistan during this tragic time, extending heartfelt sympathy to the families who lost their loved ones. Egypt also wishes a swift and full recovery to all those injured in the disaster. And for more analysis, we now move on to a new newsroom, Rihim.
Thank you, Rana. To help us analyze the situation, we're joined from Cairo by the Ahram newspaper managing editor, Ashraf Al-Ashri. Welcome, sir, to Qnews. And let's start off by asking, how significant is Egypt's hosting of the inaugural official G20 meeting outside member states in shaping the global food security priorities?
Greetings to you and your audience. Of course, this is the first meeting being hosted by Egypt, which was hosted outside the members of the G20. This meeting it happens at first time because there are negotiations between the members of the G20 and other participants in relation to pushing negotiation efforts which prioritizes the developing states' food security. We want to issue initiatives about food security in international and regional stages.
Well, sir,
now the group is being hosted by by South Africa, and it shows a wide participation from members of the G20. They want to look through the means to contribute to the developing nations, especially those in Africa. And after this meeting, a relevant work group will be organized as per the statement, the ministerial statement, and we want to strengthen the capacities of the African nations. This is among the working paper. We will issue a statement. It will be
you talked about the idea of African nations and the importance of food security for underdeveloped countries in addition to conflict-ridden regions. Why is the Cairo venue important or influential for the G20 when it comes to approaching or addressing the food crisis in these areas or these regions?
Of course, this meeting, which was organized and held in Cairo, a key player in the region and outside of the G20, not a member state. Egypt is a pivotal and key player in the MENA region and plays a pivotal role in the stability and prosperity of the region. Inside Africa, the African continent as well, Egypt is always known for launching initiatives for the good and the benefits of Africa. That's why Egypt is always conducting efforts in relation to the food security. We want to fight other like water scarcity, and in 2019 we were the hosting nation and we organized a plethora of initiatives in regard to the food security, and we are looking forward to deal with the international work groups and the relevant United Nations organizations in the matter.
Well, sir, now the G20, one of its goals is to effectively combat the weaponization of access to food. How is this especially important now, given the conflict in Gaza and the use of starvation as a weapon of war?
I think it will pose as an opportunity we are conducting diplomatic efforts and negotiation efforts to contribute in the flowing of the humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip. Egypt has contributed 55,000 tons of food and beverages, and we also want to establish a strategic point in the Egyptian side of Rafah. So this issue is very important for Egypt and the world. We want to be able to enter
yes.
The food and humanitarian aid. And this meeting which was hosted by Egypt.
Yes, sir. Your point there is clear, sir. Thank you so much for that. That was Ashraf Al-Ashri from Cairo, editor. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. And now we go back to you, Rana Al-Asas, in our studio.
Thank you so much, Riham. And now we move on to Egypt, which has dispatched its 27th aid convoy under the Zaid al-Izza provision of honor from Egypt to Gaza initiative from Rafah to Gaza via Karm Abu Salim border crossing. The second batch of Egypt's 27th humanitarian aid convoy has departed towards Gaza. This convoy carries essential supplies including rice, infant formula, flour, oil, sugar and cheese. Trucks also transport canned meals and other things to support those in need. Despite ongoing Israeli bombardment on Gaza, efforts continue to deliver aid. However, Israel persists in blocking fuel trucks from entering the Gaza Strip. The Egyptian convoy includes aid sent from Arab and Islamic countries through Arish. Notably, this shipment contains large quantities of personal care items, specifically for women and children, underscoring the urgent humanitarian response amid conflict. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has highlighted the rapid worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, warning that conditions have reached famine levels. That came during his meeting with U.S. Senators Chris Van Hollen and Jeff Merkley, where he cautioned against the grave consequences of expanding military operations in Gaza. The Egyptian Foreign Minister firmly reiterated Egypt's absolute rejection of any plans to forcibly displace Palestinians from their land. Abdulati also listened to the senators' impressions following their visit to El Arish and Rafah, where they observed Egypt's ongoing efforts to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza's residents. The discussions underscored Egypt's commitment to alleviating suffering and upholding Palestinian rights.
Senator, it's good to have you here.
U.S. senators visited Egypt's Rafah border crossing, inspecting aid efforts and discussing ongoing challenges limiting humanitarian supplies reaching Gaza. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has affirmed Egypt's commitment to achieving a ceasefire and ensuring safe humanitarian access, praising Slovenia's balanced stance on the Palestinian cause. During his meeting with Slovenian Prime Minister Robert Golob at the B-led Strategic Forum, Abdulati condemned Slovenia's recognition of Palestine last year and urged the international community, especially the EU, to pressure Israel to halt severe violations and end starvation tactics. He highlighted existing European mechanisms to support ceasefire efforts, emphasizing strong Egypt-Slovenian bilateral ties. He also encouraged expanding cooperation in energy, transport, ports and labor, inviting Slovenian investments in Egypt as a gateway to Africa and strengthening political consultations amid Slovenia's UN Security Council membership. Jordan's ambassador to the Arab League, Amgad al-Adalia, has condemned the ongoing Israeli aggression and unprecedented violations against Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, emphasizing Palestine as the Arab world's central cause. Speaking at the 664th session of the Arab League Council, he stressed that a just, comprehensive solution is vital for regional and international peace. Al-Adalia called for robust Arab political, legal and diplomatic action to counter Israeli policies, urging global accountability. He highlighted the urgent need to protect Palestinians and uphold their right to an independent state based on the 1967 borders. Jordan pledges continued diplomatic efforts to unify Arab positions and achieve peaceful resolutions. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 63,500 and over 160,600 were wounded. The Gaza Ministry of Health has reported that hospitals in the Gaza Strip have received 98 dead and 404 others injured in the past 24 hours. The Gaza Ministry of Health has reported that 46 were dead and 239 wounded as a result of the Israeli bombing of aid centers in the last 24 hours. It also reported that the number of victims from the bombing of aid centers has risen to more than 2,240 deaths and more than 16,800 wounded. Today, approximately 46,000 Palestinian refugee children began the new school year in UNRWA-run schools across the West Bank, including 5,000 first graders starting their education. UNRWA highlighted increased educational disruptions over the past 2 years, with repeated raids, vandalism, displacement and violence impact in children's access to education. The agency reaffirmed its commitment to protecting the right to education and hopes all children, including those in East Jerusalem, can learn in safe, dignified environments. However, thousands remain deprived of school due to the Israeli occupation policies. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir's and other ministers' request to vote on a partial detainee release deal. Netanyahu declared the proposal off the table during a Security Cabinet meeting, citing U.S. President Donald Trump's directive to ignore partial deals and and decisively resolve the Gaza conflict. Despite Netanyahu's stance, Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir proposed an impartial deal to free 10 live detainees and 18 bodies over about 60 days, negotiating a ceasefire and further releases in exchanges for halting hostilities and freeing hundreds of detainees. Some ministers opposed Zamir's plan, while Netanyahu warned of a high cost for territorial concessions and firmly rejected the vote. Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has announced the expansion of his controversial policy by allowing nearly 100,000 more Israelis to obtain private gun licenses, adding new cities to the eligible list. Since the policy's launch in late 2023, about 230,000 new firearm permits have been issued, including to settlers in the occupied West Bank. Settlers have frequently carried out violent attacks using firearms against Palestinians, causing deaths, forced displacements, and widespread property destruction, including the uprooting of thousands of olive trees. Ben-Gvir's policy has intensified tensions amid ongoing conflict and accusations of settler terrorism targeting Palestinian communities. Hundreds of students across Israel protested at the start of the school year, demanding the release of detainees held in Gaza, with 17 schools in Tel Aviv closed in solidarity. Protesters carried signs highlighting the ongoing detaining of 47 Israelis and refusing to accept coexistence under such conditions. Families of the detainees demonstrated outside homes of key Israeli ministers, urging a detainee exchange deal and an end to the Gaza war. Demonstrators called for government action, emphasizing the urgency of negotiations. Families reported a proposed deal is currently under negotiation, but has not yet been discussed by the Political Security Cabinet amid escalating ground operations risking detainees' lives. And now we move on to China, where leaders gather in Shanghai Cooperation Organization summits, shaping regional cooperation and strategy. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization's final communique has condemned actions causing civilian casualties in Gaza and called for an immediate ceasefire. It stressed the urgent need to ensure humanitarian aid reaches Gaza's population. The summit also denounced Israeli and U.S. attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, labeling such strikes as blatant violations of international law. Participants reaffirmed their commitment to the non-nuclear proliferation treaty and opposed the Europeans' Turkey's initiative to reimpose sanctions on Iran. They rejected any damage to nuclear infrastructure during military conflicts. Additionally, Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states signed an agreement to establish a global center dedicated to countering security threats facing member countries, enhancing regional cooperation and stability. Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has strongly condemned Israel's expanded military operations in Gaza and its attempts to render the region forcibly displacing Palestinians. He denounced Israeli settler violence and settlement activities in the West Bank aimed at undermining the two-state solution. Speaking at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Plus Summit in Tianjin, Madbouli highlighted the devastating toll on the Palestinian civilians and called for an immediate ceasefire, urging Israel to accept a temporary truce to negotiate peace and Gaza's reconstruction under the Arab Islamic plan. He reaffirmed Egypt's support for a Palestinian state within the 1967 borders and backed Chinese initiatives for global reforms and financial system overhaul to aid developing nations. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit that Western efforts to integrate Kyiv into NATO are a primary cause of the Ukrainian conflict. He attributed the crisis largely to the 2014 Kyiv coup, which he claims was instigated by the US and warned the NATO's expansion poses a direct threat to Russia's security. Putin emphasized that a lasting resolution requires addressing these root causes and restoring a fair security balance in Europe. He praised China and India's proposals to ease the crisis and expressed hope that recent US-Russia talks in Alaska will contribute to peace efforts.
В условиях, когда некоторые страны по-прежнему не отказываются от стремления к диктату в международных делах. Россия поддерживает инициативу.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has described the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as a guide light for multilateralism and an inclusive world order during the SCO summit in Tianjin. He emphasized that India views stronger connectivity as a means to foster not only business but also trust and development. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, initially formed by 6 Euro-Asian countries, has grown to include 10 permanent members and 16 dialogue and observer states. Modi is scheduled to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin during the summit shortly after the US imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods due to India's ongoing purchases of Russian oil. During talks in Tianjin on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian President Narendra Modi have lauded the strong and dynamic ties between their nations. Putin referred to Modi as his dear friend, highlighting the positive trajectory of bilateral relations. Modi expressed hope for a swift resolution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, emphasizing the desire for peace. Their meeting underscored the importance of ongoing cooperation within the SCO framework and signaled mutual commitment to strengthening strategic partnerships amid global challenges. That brings us to the end of what I have been covering. Egypt announces that the global food crisis is intensified now by climate change and geopolitical conflicts. Egypt's foreign ministers meet with US senators where they highlight the rapid worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And the Egyptian Prime Minister strongly condemns Israel's expanded military operations in Gaza. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.